Welcome, Sugandho.
Hello, everybody. I was in my mid-30s when I participated in a seminar on personal empowerment together with my partner. And I participated thinking I'm accompanying my partner, and only found out quite some time later how important this seminar was for me. Amongst other things, we learned about modernized techniques and methods of the heart. Now, when I talk about the heart, I don't mean the physical heart. I mean the heart that we all know when we feel compassion for ourselves or when we feel compassion for others. And there was one specific technique that I very much enjoyed, and it was about the acceptance of the heart. And I'm glad I learned to practice this technique. At the end, when the seminar came to an end, I faced a very difficult and challenging situation. I saw my partner falling in love with another woman in the workshop, in the same seminar. So here I was, learning about acceptance of the heart, and at the same time I was facing a situation that felt so unacceptable. My mind fell into a total gap. I was like paralyzed, and all I wanted was to go home and hide myself somewhere. So I did go home alone. And feeling very desperate, feeling I had nothing really to lose, it came to me to say, why don't you try the methods you just learned in your seminar? Why don't you put them to a test and see if they can really help in a moment of emotional despair, in a moment of an emotional crisis? So I gave myself a few rules, like I didn't leave the house, I switched off the phone, I switched off the TV, or I didn't switch it on, and I just decided to take everything away that would distract me from exploring what I felt I needed to explore. Now you can imagine that this brings up a lot of emotions when you suddenly don't distract yourself while you're sitting on a volcano. So I was crying, I was getting angry and was beating a pillow. I was desperate and paralyzed, and I was crying again. Until after a while I felt calm enough to actually sit down, close my eyes and do my meditation. And the meditation is very simple, closing your eyes and bringing whatever is happening, whatever the feelings are, into the heart. Just bringing it close. Now this sounds very simple, but I can tell you it wasn't simple in the situation I was in. And there were moments when my mind was freaking out and just wanted to pick up the phone and call my boyfriend and tell him what a miserable guy he was doing this to me. There were moments where I thought I'm going to lose it altogether and go crazy. And I stayed also with that. I took that too into my heart. And of course, it took a while to let this practice work on me, but eventually I noticed that something was starting to crystallize inside of me. And the first crystallization that came was the word jealousy that we all know, but it came with such a force of pain, pain in the heart. And I've suddenly asked myself, what actually is jealousy? Where does this pain actually come from? And as I went deeper in, I suddenly understood that I was comparing myself to this other woman. And not only was I comparing myself, I put myself down next to her. And I didn't even know this woman. I didn't even know who she was. I had seen her for a few days. So it suddenly dawned on me that putting myself down is most of the pain I feel. I caused pain to myself by making myself uglier than her, less important than her, less interesting than her. And once I understood that, there was like a switch in my heart, and I realized I don't need to do that. I can actually stop it here and now. And that was like, how to say, a breakthrough in my heart. It just allowed me to also see, which I hadn't seen in all these hours and days, the beauty I have inside, outside, my intelligence, all the positive qualities that I had found up to this moment in my life. It was a very beautiful experience to shift from such a pain to actually a deep relaxation and a joy in my heart. Today, I would call this a moment of transformation. Back then, I didn't mind what it was. It just felt really good to be relieved of that pain, which of course came back and forth, but there was a change. I started coming back to life. I wanted to see people. I didn't need to hide anymore. So what could have been a crisis, a long-term crisis, was a beautiful moment of transformation. Now, why am I telling you this? We all know these moments in our life when our mind is simply impotent, when our mind cannot handle a situation. And no matter how much we have trained ourselves and how sophisticated we can be, there are simply moments in life where life doesn't follow any logic. Like my partner leaves me for another woman, there is no logic to it. And then it brings up feelings that are often very overwhelming for us as adults. And we simply don't understand where they come from, why they are so strong. Now, this is usually a moment when clients come to me in my work. They come because the mind cannot provide them with a solution. And it is very difficult for an adult to face helplessness, to face the feeling of I'm not in control of a situation. We all expect from ourselves that we can handle things, and suddenly we can't. Now, there is very interesting research, neurological research, on a phenomena why emotions and our rationality have such a battle with each other, why they are so separate. Arthur Janov, a well-known American psychologist and psychotherapist, he just recently died, who is the founder of primal therapy. You might have heard about that. He has written a book called The Primal Scream, and in this book he describes that in our brain there is a division, there is a separation between the part in the brain that holds our emotional memories and the other part that is responsible for our cognitive understanding. And this separation, for us as adults, has a big influence. So, when an adult, for example, experiences an emotional trigger, like a separation from somebody we love, then not only do we feel the current pain, but it often triggers more memories in the emotional memory. And then it comes to a point where an adult suddenly feels helpless like a child. And at the same time, our rational mind tells us this cannot be, that should not be like this. I'm an adult. I should not feel like a small child. What needs to happen in this situation is not to judge and to complain and try to get rid of these feelings that are difficult, but rather to bring them closer so we can actually feel them and understand them and eventually heal them. And here the heart plays a key role. It is not our mind that allows us to feel or to embrace and accept something and be compassionate. Yeah, this is a quality of the heart. And when we bring heart to these feelings, we actually can embrace them. We can be and feel them and be compassionate and empathetic towards ourselves. So when a client comes to me with a lot of self-blame and tensions through all his thinking and analyzing, this is the first step. I take him more towards his heart, which is a great resource at any time, but especially when we are in an emotional crisis. And when the client then comes closer to these feelings and allows himself to feel them, the perspective of the rational mind also changes. The mind starts to understand and see a bigger picture and be less critical about the situation. That there are two realities, the feeling like a child and an adult, and they can be there at the same time if we understand it correctly. So what we actually as adults often need to learn is to feel again. Yeah? And feeling is something we can learn. It's not something very difficult, actually. There are wonderful techniques to learn how to feel. Now, this is my message. The heart and the mind need to work together. They are not enemies. They can be there together. The heart is so powerful, and it's already there. All we need to do is go inwards and connect to it and learn a bit how to do that. And in my opinion, the heart should guide the mind, not the other way around. We need to spend time with our heart. We need to balance this digital lifestyle we are all in by connecting with the heart. And there are so many ways of doing that, no matter in what profession we are, if we are scientists, if we are architects, if we are living in a digital world and working in a digital world. Our communication, for example, the listening, we can listen from the heart. We can go into nature and give our heart space. We can cook a delicious meal with our heart. So in a brave new world, I feel we need much more courage to live our life with the heart, from the heart, and then do all these exciting things that we are already doing, but doing them differently. And by the way, the word courage comes from the same root as the French word cœur, which means the heart. So mind the heart. Thank you.